The blood-red sun dipped below the horizon as Madeline Collins clutched her daughter's worn rag doll, tears streaming down her dirt-streaked face. 6 days had passed since 5-year-old Sarah disappeared from their homestead on the outskirts of Timber Creek, and with each passing moment, Madeline's hope diminished like water evaporating in the merciless Arizona desert. Timber Creek, 1878, was no place for a widow to raise a child alone, but Madeline had managed for 3 years since her husband Thomas died from typhoid fever. At 26, she'd built a respectable life, teaching at the one-room schoolhouse while maintaining their small cabin and garden. Now, the empty cabin echoed with memories of Sarah's laughter. "Madam," Sheriff Wilson's gruff voice interrupted her thoughts as he removed his hat. "My men and I have searched every inch of land between here and the river. No sign of the girl." Madeline nodded mechanically, her fingers tracing the stitches of Sarah's doll. "Thank you for trying, Sheriff. We'll keep looking, but—" He shifted uncomfortably. "Madam, there's been mountain lion tracks spotted near Blackwater Ridge, and with the rains washing away any trail." "She's alive," Madeline whispered, though the conviction in her voice had faded after days of desperate searching. The sheriff placed his hat back on his head. "Perhaps you should speak with Reverend Taylor. Times like these, folks need faith." "I've prayed until my knees bled, Sheriff." Her voice cracked. "God isn't listening anymore." After the sheriff departed, Madeline sat on the porch steps as darkness enveloped the land. The evening wind carried distant sounds of Timber Creek piano music from the saloon, laughter, the occasional gunshot. Life continuing while hers had shattered. She hadn't noticed the rider approaching until the horse's hooves disturbed the silence. A tall figure dismounted, leading a chestnut mare toward her cabin. "Evening, madam," came a deep voice, tinged with a southern drawl. "Name's Reese Montgomery. Town's buzzing about your missing girl." In the dim light, Madeline could make out a man in his early 30s, trail-worn but with kind eyes beneath the brim of his Stetson. Dust covered his denim pants and leather vest, suggesting he'd been riding hard. "Everyone's looking." "Everyone's sorry," Madeline said flatly, "but nobody's finding her." "I ain't just everyone, madam." He removed his hat, revealing dark hair streaked with premature silver at the temples. "I track for a living. Used to scout for the army before the war, then hunted bounty after. If your girl's out there, I aim to find her." Madeline studied him suspiciously. "What's your price, Mr. Montgomery?" "No price. Just doing what's right." She'd heard such promises before from men hoping to impress the young widow, only to disappear when the task proved difficult. "Why would you help a stranger?" Reese's gaze drifted to the distant mountains. "Lost my sister when I was 14. She was taken by Comanche raiders, never found her." His eyes returned to Madeline's. No child should be lost and alone. Something in his voice, raw sincerity, perhaps made Madeline stand. "I have coffee inside." Over steaming cups, Madeline showed Reese her daughter's belongings: a small dress, a hair ribbon, a sketch she'd made of Sarah with her honey-colored hair and freckled nose. "She wandered off while I was hanging laundry," Madeline explained, the guilt nearly choking her. "Just a moment. That's all it took." Reese studied the items carefully. "Children rarely travel as far as adults expect. They get scared, find a place to hide." He glanced at the worn Bible on her table. "Sheriff mentioned you've given up on prayer." Madeline's fingers tightened around her cup. "God took my husband, now my daughter. I've nothing left to say to him." Reese nodded, not judging. "First light I'll start tracking, but tonight—" He hesitated, then continued gently. "I'll pray with you tonight if you'll let me. Sometimes it helps to not face the darkness alone." Something about his quiet offer, not demanding she pray, but offering to shoulder the burden with her brought fresh tears to Madeline's eyes. "I wouldn't know what to say anymore," she whispered. "Then I'll do the talking," he replied simply. As promised, Reese rode out at dawn, carrying Sarah's hair ribbon to help the tracking dogs he'd borrowed from a rancher outside town. Madeline insisted on accompanying him, despite his concerns. "I'm not staying behind," she said firmly, mounting the mare he'd brought for her. "I've searched these woods every day." The morning revealed nothing new. They followed the creek bed, checked abandoned mine shafts, called Sarah's name until their voices grew hoarse. By midday, Madeline's hope was flagging again. "Mr. Montgomery, Reese," he corrected. "Reese, you needn't waste more time. The sheriff's men have covered this ground." He studied the soil near a thicket of junipers. With respect to Sheriff Wilson, most lawmen can track a horse thief on a marked trail, but reading sign takes years to master. He pointed to indentations in the earth that looked like nothing to Madeline. "Small prints. Could be a child, though hard to tell with the rain we've had." They continued following the faint trail until reaching a fork in the path. Reese examined both directions carefully before choosing the western route, which led toward the mountains. "The miners' camp is that way," Madeline noted. "Rough men." "All the more reason to check," Reese said grimly. The mining camp consisted of a dozen canvas tents and crude wooden structures where men sought their fortunes in the nearby hills. As they approached, hostile stares greeted them. "State your business," called a bearded man cleaning a rifle outside the largest tent. "Looking for a lost child," Reese replied evenly, though Madeline noticed his hand never strayed far from his holster. "5-year-old girl been missing nearly a week." The miners exchanged glances, some shaking their heads. "Ain't seen no child," the bearded man replied. "Though Barton brought in a mountain lion yesterday. Big female." Madeline's heart stuttered and Reese moved his horse closer to hers. "Where's this Barton?" They were directed to a smaller tent at the camp's edge. A rangy, unshaven man emerged, eyeing them suspiciously. "What you shoot that mountain lion for?" Reese asked without preamble. "Been taking my traps," Barton spat. "What's it to you? Where'd you kill it?" "Up by Eagle Rock." "What, need to see the carcass?" Reese interrupted. Madeline's throat constricted as Barton led them behind his tent where the large cat lay skinned, its pelt stretched on a wooden frame. Reese dismounted and examined the animal's paws and head carefully. "This cat's been dead at least 10 days, he announced finally. "And it's a male, not a female." Relief washed over Madeline, followed immediately by shame for the feeling. No parent should be grateful that a predator hadn't killed their child. It meant Sarah was still missing, still in danger. As they departed the camp, Reese noticed her distress. "That's good news, Mrs. Collins." "Madeline," she corrected automatically. "And is it? She's been gone 6 days now, without food, water. Children are resilient, and there are streams, berries." Or she could have fallen, or Madeline couldn't finish the thought. They continued searching until dusk forced them to return to Timber Creek. Throughout the day, Reese had shared stories of successful searches, children found alive after everyone had given up hope. Madeline wanted desperately to believe him. Back at her cabin, Madeline prepared a simple meal while Reese tended the horses. The routine felt strangely domestic, providing momentary distraction from her worry. "You're a good cook," Reese commented as they ate rabbit stew with cornbread. "Sarah loves this stew," Madeline replied, then caught herself. "Loves, not loved. She's alive. I have to believe that," Reese nodded. "Faith isn't just for church, Madeline. It's for when everything seems lost." After dinner, Reese unrolled his bedroll on the porch, refusing Madeline's offer of the cabin floor. "Wouldn't be proper," he explained. "And I sleep better under the stars anyway." As Madeline prepared for bed, she heard Reese's voice quietly praying on the porch. The sound brought unexpected comfort, not because she believed God would suddenly answer after days of silence, but because someone else cared enough to ask. The next morning brought steady rain, hampering their search efforts but not stopping them. Reese led them along a different path, examining every broken twig, every disturbed stone. By midday, they'd reached the base of Blackwater Ridge. Caves up there, Reese noted, pointing toward the craggy hillside. Natural shelter. The climb was treacherous in the rain, the path slick with mud. Halfway up, Madeline slipped, nearly falling down the steep incline before Reese caught her arm. "Careful," he warned, not releasing her until she had secure footing. "The last thing Sarah needs is both of you injured." The brief contact sent unexpected warmth through Madeline's cold, rain-soaked body. She'd forgotten how it felt to have someone concerned for her welfare. She'd been so focused on surviving, on raising Sarah alone, that her own needs had become secondary. They explored 3 caves before Reese froze at the entrance to the 4th. "Look," he whispered, pointing at the muddy ground. Small footprints, barely visible, led into the cave. "Sarah," Madeline called, her voice echoing in the darkness. "Sarah, are you here?" Silence answered her. Reese lit a torch from his pack, illuminating the cave's interior. It extended farther than expected, narrowing into a passage. "Be careful," Reese warned as they ventured deeper. The cave floor was dry, with evidence of previous fires, ashes, charred wood. Someone had used this place as shelter. "Indians?" Madeline questioned. "No," Reese replied, examining the remnants. "This fire's recent. And small." Hope surged through Madeline as they continued into the passage. The cave opened into a larger chamber where they found a tattered blanket, some dried berries, and a crude cup fashioned from bark. "Sarah," Madeline called again, her voice cracking with emotion. This time, a faint rustling answered from a crevice in the far wall. Reese raised his torch higher, illuminating a small opening. "Hello," he called gently. "Anyone in there?" A small face, dirty but unmistakable, peered out from the crevice. Sarah's eyes widened at the sight of her mother. "Mama!" Her voice was barely audible, disbelieving. "Sarah." Madeline rushed forward as her daughter emerged from hiding, falling to her knees to gather the child in her arms. "Oh, my baby, my baby." The girl was filthy, thin, and scratched, but alive. Madeline sobbed as she held her daughter, checking her for serious injuries. "I got lost," Sarah whimpered. "I followed a rabbit and couldn't find home. Then it rained and I found the cave." "You're so clever," Madeline praised through tears. "So brave." Reese had remained a respectful distance away, but now approached with a gentle smile. "Hello there, Sarah. I'm Reese. I've been helping your mama look for you." The child regarded him solemnly. "Are you an angel?" "I prayed for an angel to help me." Reese chuckled. "No, not an angel, just a man who's good at finding things." They made their way carefully down the ridge, Reese carrying Sarah when the path grew treacherous. The rain had stopped, and sunlight broke through the clouds as they reached the horses. "The good Lord was watching over her," Reese remarked as they rode toward town. 7 days alone, and she had the sense to find shelter, gather food. Madeline, her arm securely around Sarah seated before her on the saddle, looked at Reese with gratitude that words couldn't express. "You found her when everyone else gave up." "We found her," he corrected. And maybe those prayers helped after all. Their return to Timber Creek caused a sensation. People rushed from shops and homes to witness the miracle. The lost child returned. Dr. Hansen examined Sarah immediately, declaring her dehydrated and malnourished but otherwise healthy. "Keep her warm, feed her small meals frequently, and let her rest," the doctor advised. "She's a remarkably resilient child." That evening, after Sarah had eaten and fallen asleep in her own bed, Madeline joined Reese on the porch. The town had brought food, blankets, offers of help Madeline had accepted gratefully, but now cherished the quiet moment. "I can never repay you," she said softly, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. "Seeing her safe is payment enough." Reese glanced at her. "What will you do now?" "Continue teaching, raising my daughter," Madeline hesitated, "and perhaps find my way back to faith." Reese nodded. "Good. Faith gives hope when there seems to be none." "Where will you go?" Madeline asked, surprised by how much his answer mattered to her. He contemplated the question. "Not sure. Been drifting since the war, no place to call home." "You could stay," Madeline suggested, then flushed at her boldness. "Timber Creek is growing, they need good men." Reese studied her face in the moonlight. Might be nice having roots somewhere. The following days established a tentative routine. Reese took a room at the boarding house in town but visited daily, bringing small gifts for Sarah, a carved wooden horse, wildflowers, stories of his adventures that made the girl's eyes grow wide with wonder. Madeline noticed how gently he treated her daughter, never pushing for affection but earning it through consistent kindness. Sarah, normally shy with strangers, especially men, had taken to Reese immediately. "Mama, is Mr. Reese going to stay forever?" Sarah asked one evening as Madeline tucked her into bed. "I don't know, sweetheart. He's a traveler. I want him to stay," Sarah declared. "He makes you smile again." Madeline kissed her daughter's forehead, not trusting herself to respond. She hadn't realized her smiles had been so rare, or that they'd returned with Reese's presence. On Sunday, Madeline dressed Sarah in her best dress and prepared for church, their first attendance since before Sarah's disappearance. As they walked toward the white clapboard building, Reese appeared beside them, surprisingly clean-shaven and wearing a crisp white shirt. "Mind if I join you ladies?" he asked, offering his arm to Madeline. The congregation welcomed them warmly, though Madeline noticed curious glances at Reese's presence beside her. Timber Creek thrived on gossip, and an unmarried woman with a handsome stranger was prime fodder. Reverend Taylor's sermon focused on faith during trial's words that once would have seemed hollow to Madeline, but now resonated differently. When the congregation sang hymns, Reese's deep baritone beside her sent shivers down her spine. After the service, while Sarah played with other children, Madeline confronted the whispers directly. "Mr. Montgomery found my daughter when everyone else had given up," she told Mrs. Peterson, the most notorious gossip in town. "He deserves our gratitude, not speculation." "Of course, dear Mrs. Peterson replied with a knowing smile. "Though you must admit, he seems quite attached for someone who was merely being neighborly." Madeline couldn't deny the observation. Reese had opportunities to move on but remained in Timber Creek. He'd taken odd jobs helping at the livery stable, assisting the blacksmith, even joining a posse when cattle rustlers targeted a nearby ranch. People were beginning to accept him as part of the community. 2 weeks after Sarah's return, Reese invited Madeline for a walk while Sarah stayed with her friend Emma and Mrs. Baker. "I've been thinking," he began as they strolled along the creek that gave the town its name. "The railroad's coming through next year. Town's growing. Might be opportunity for a man willing to work hard. Are you considering staying permanently?" Madeline asked, trying to keep her tone casual. Reese stopped walking, turning to face her. "That depends." "On what?" "On whether there's someone worth staying for." His eyes met hers. "I've grown fond of you and Sarah, Madeline, more than fond." Madeline's heart quickened. "Reese, you don't need to answer now," he interrupted gently. "You've been through an ordeal, just know my intentions are honorable." Madeline gathered her courage. When Thomas died, I swore I'd never rely on anyone again. I'd be strong for Sarah, provide for her myself. Being strong doesn't mean being alone, Reese said. Sometimes the strongest thing is allowing yourself to need someone. Is that what you did after the war? Reese's expression darkened. No, I ran from needing anyone, buried myself in work and drifting. It's a lonely path, Madeline. They walked in silence for a while, the gentle gurgle of the creek accompanying their thoughts. Finally, Madeline spoke. I'm not ready to make promises, Reese. But I'm not asking you to leave either. He smiled, understanding in his eyes. That's fair enough for now. Spring blossomed into summer, and Timber Creek thrived under clear skies and favorable conditions. The school term ended, giving Madeline more time with Sarah and with Reese, who had secured steady work as deputy sheriff when Wilson recognized his tracking abilities. They established a comfortable pattern. Reese joined them for Sunday dinners after church, occasionally took them on picnics by the creek, and taught Sarah to fish. The child adored him, and Madeline found herself increasingly drawn to his quiet strength and unwavering integrity. One warm July evening, as fireflies danced in the gathering dusk, Reese brought his guitar to their porch. Sarah had been put to bed, and Madeline sat beside him, listening as he played soft melodies. "Where did you learn to play?" she asked. "My father taught me before the war." Music was the only gentle thing in his life. Reese's fingers moved skillfully across the strings. He was a hard man, but different when he played. "You never speak of your family." Reese's playing paused momentarily. "Not much to tell. Father died at Shiloh, fighting for the Confederacy. Mother passed from influenza during the war, and my sister." He resumed playing a melancholy tune. "As I told you, she was taken. I searched for years." "Is that why you helped us?" "Because of your sister, partly," he admitted. "But also because the moment I saw you on that porch, holding that doll, something inside me knew I couldn't ride away." Madeline's breath caught. "And now? Do you still feel that way?" Reese set the guitar aside, turning to face her. The moonlight illuminated his features, the strong jaw, kind eyes that had seen too much hardship, yet still held warmth. "I love you, Madeline. I love Sarah. I want to build a life here with both of you if you'll have me." The words hung in the summer air between them. Madeline had known they were coming, had perhaps even longed for them, but hearing them spoken aloud made them real, consequential. "I'm afraid," she confessed. "When Thomas died, it nearly destroyed me if I hadn't had Sarah." "I understand fear," Reese said gently. "But is it stronger than what you feel for me?" Madeline considered the question honestly. Over the past months, Reese had become essential to her happiness, to her sense of security. His absence left an ache, his presence brought joy. "No," she whispered. "It's not stronger." Reese took her hand, his touch sending warmth through her. "Then we face the fear together." He leaned forward slowly, giving her time to withdraw if she wished. Instead, Madeline closed the distance between them. His lips met hers gently at first, then with growing intensity as she responded. It had been so long since she'd been kissed, since she'd allowed herself to want this kind of connection. When they finally parted, both breathless, Reese rested his forehead against hers. "I should go," he murmured. "People talk." "Let them talk," Madeline replied, surprising herself with her boldness. Reese chuckled. "Still, propriety matters. I respect you too much to cause gossip." He stood, collecting his guitar. "I'll speak with Reverend Taylor tomorrow, do things properly." Madeline's heart fluttered at the implication. "Reese, are you not officially asking yet?" he interrupted with a smile. "When I do, it'll be done right. But yes, Madeline Collins, that's where my heart is heading." He kissed her once more, briefly but tenderly, before departing into the night. Madeline remained on the porch long after he'd gone, her fingers touching her lips, her mind racing with possibilities she'd thought forever closed to her. The following Sunday, after church, Reese invited Madeline and Sarah on a picnic by the creek. Sarah ran ahead, chasing butterflies while Reese carried the basket Madeline had prepared. "Sheriff offered me a permanent position," Reese announced as they walked. "With the railroad coming, he needs a reliable deputy." "That's wonderful news," Madeline replied, genuinely pleased. The position would provide stability, respectability, things a drifter typically lacked. They settled beneath a large cottonwood tree, spreading a blanket on the grass. Sarah immediately asked to wade in the shallow creek, and Madeline consented, watching as her daughter splashed happily. "She's fully recovered," Reese observed. "Children heal quickly." "Thanks to you," Madeline said. "Not just for finding her, but for helping her feel safe again. She used to have nightmares about being lost in the dark. They've stopped." Reese's expression grew serious. "Madeline, there's something I need to tell you about my past." Concern flickered through her. "What is it? After the war, I did things I'm not proud of. Bounty hunting wasn't always clean work. I killed men." "Bad men," Madeline surmised, "mostly. But the line blurs when you live that life too long." His eyes met hers directly. "I want no secrets between us. I've shed blood for money. I've lived by my gun." Madeline considered his confession. "The man you were shaped the man you are, Reese. And the man you are saved my daughter, treats her with kindness and honors me with respect. That's the man I've come to care for." Relief crossed his features. "I hoped you'd say something like that." He reached into his pocket, withdrawing a small object. "This belonged to my mother. I've carried it, hoping someday to give it to the right woman." He opened his palm, revealing a simple gold ring with a small pearl. "It's not fancy, it's beautiful," Madeline interrupted, her heart racing. Reese glanced toward Sarah, still playing in the creek, then back to Madeline. "I love you. I love your daughter as if she were my own. I want to build a life with you both, protect you, provide for you." He took a deep breath. "Madeline Collins, will you marry me?" Though she'd anticipated this moment, the reality of it, the sincerity in his eyes, the tremor in his usually steady voice overwhelmed her. Tears welled in her eyes. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, Reese." His face broke into a smile of such genuine joy that it took her breath away. He slipped the ring onto her finger, then leaned forward to kiss her, a promise sealed. "Mama, Mr. Reese, look at my fish," Sarah called, interrupting their moment as she held up empty hands, pretending to have caught something. Reese laughed. "Quite a catch there, little one." Sarah abandoned her imaginary fishing to join them on the blanket, noticing the ring immediately with a child's keen observation. "What's that?" Madeline exchanged glances with Reese before answering. "Mr. Reese has asked me to marry him. He wants us to be a family." Sarah's eyes widened. "Like a papa, if you'd like that," Reese replied carefully. "I'd be honored to be your papa, but I know you had a father who loved you very much." Sarah considered this with surprising maturity. "My first papa is in heaven with the angels, but I think he'd want me to have a new papa here." She climbed into Reese's lap with the easy affection she'd developed for him. "Will you teach me to ride a horse like you?" "When you're a bit older," he promised, wrapping an arm around her. Madeline watched them, her heart full. From the depths of despair, a missing child, a faith abandoned, had come this unexpected blessing. A second chance at love, at family. The news of their engagement spread quickly through Timber Creek, met with general approval. Reverend Taylor agreed to perform the ceremony in August, giving them time to prepare. Mrs. Baker and other women from the church helped Madeline sew a new dress from pale blue fabric ordered specially from Denver. "You deserve some happiness, dear," Mrs. Baker said as they worked on the gown. "After all you've been through." "I never expected to find love again," Madeline admitted, especially not like this. The Lord works in mysterious ways, the older woman replied with a knowing smile. Sometimes the darkest moments lead us to the brightest blessings. Reese, meanwhile, had begun construction on an addition to Madeline's cabin, a larger bedroom and a proper dining room. The community pitched in, as they often did for barn raisings and house buildings, making the work progress quickly. A man should provide a proper home for his family, Reese explained when Madeline protested the expense and effort. The pride in his voice when he said, "family," made her objections fade. 2 weeks before the wedding, trouble arrived in Timber Creek. A gang of outlaws robbed the bank in neighboring Preston Falls, killing the teller. Reports indicated they were heading toward Timber Creek. Sheriff Wilson gathered a posse, including Reese. "These are dangerous men," he warned as they prepared to ride out. "Jennings' gang. They've left bodies across 3 territories." Madeline watched anxiously as Reese checked his revolver and rifle. "Must you go? It's my job now," he replied gently. "And better to meet them before they reach town." She knew he was right but couldn't shake her fear. "Please be careful. We need you to come back." Reese kissed her, then knelt to embrace Sarah. "Take care of your mama while I'm gone. I'll be back before you know it." The posse departed at dawn, 8 men riding to intercept the outlaws. Madeline tried to maintain normalcy for Sarah's sake, continuing wedding preparations and teaching her daughter letters and numbers, but anxiety gnawed at her constantly. 3 days passed with no word. On the 4th morning, Madeline was hanging laundry when she heard approaching horses. Her heart leaped, then plummeted as she saw Sheriff Wilson's grim expression. 4 riders returned where 8 had departed. "Madeline," the sheriff began, dismounting slowly. Blood stained his shirt. "There was a gunfight at Carson's Ridge." "Reese." Her voice was barely audible. "He's alive," Wilson assured her quickly. "But wounded. Doc Parker's tending to him at his office." Madeline grabbed Sarah and raced to town, her heart pounding. Dr. Parker's office was a small building near the general store with a surgery room in the back. The doctor met her at the door, his apron bloodied. "He's stable," Dr. Parker said before she could ask. "Bullet took him in the shoulder, another grazed his side. Lost blood, but he's strong." "Can I see him?" The doctor nodded, leading her to the back room. Sarah clung to her hand, unusually quiet. Reese lay on the examination table, his skin pale beneath his tan, bandages wrapped around his torso and shoulder. His eyes were closed, but they fluttered open as Madeline approached. "Sorry about this," he murmured, attempting a weak smile. "Bad timing." Tears of relief filled Madeline's eyes. "Don't you dare apologize for being alive." "The Jennings boys?" he asked, looking past her to Sheriff Wilson, who had followed them in. "2 dead, 3 captured," Wilson replied. "None escaped. You got the leader, Reese." "Shot was clean, even with your injury." Reese nodded slightly, then winced at the movement. "Wedding might need postponing." "Not a chance," Madeline declared firmly. "I'll marry you standing or lying down, Reese Montgomery. 2 weeks is plenty of time to heal enough to say I do." A genuine smile crossed his face. "Yes, madam." Dr. Parker moved Reese to a recovery room behind his office, insisting he remain under observation for several days. Madeline visited morning and evening, bringing meals and reading to him while Sarah entertained him with stories and drawings. By the following week, Reese was strong enough to return to the boarding house, though Dr. Parker forbade him from working or exerting himself. The townsfolk, impressed by his role in capturing the notorious Jennings gang, showered him with gifts and assistance. "Never had so many people fussing over me," Reese commented as Madeline helped change his bandages. "Mrs. Henderson brought 3 pies yesterday." "You're a hero," Madeline replied, carefully wrapping fresh gauze around his shoulder. "And people care about you." Still not used to that, he admitted. Caring, belonging somewhere. Madeline's fingers paused in their work. You belong with us, Reese. With me and Sarah. His good arm reached up to touch her face. Best thing that ever happened to me was finding you too. I believe God sent you to us, Madeline said softly. When I'd stopped believing he listened at all. Maybe we found each other because we both needed saving, Reese suggested. The day of the wedding dawned clear and bright. August in Arizona brought merciless heat, but the church had been decorated with wildflowers and ribbons, windows open to catch any breeze. Nearly everyone in Timber Creek attended. Madeline had taught many of their children, and Reese had earned respect as both rescuer and lawman. Sarah, serving as flower girl, took her role seriously, carefully dropping rose petals along the aisle before taking her place at the front. Mrs. Baker had styled her hair with ribbons matching Madeline's dress. When Madeline entered on Sheriff Wilson's arm, he'd offered to give her away, having known Thomas. The congregation stood. Her blue dress, simply cut but elegantly fitted, complemented her auburn hair, which she'd worn down at Reese's request. Reese waited at the altar, his injured arm in a sling but standing tall in a new black suit. The expression on his face as he watched her approach, wonder, love, gratitude, erased any lingering doubts Madeline might have harbored. Reverend Taylor smiled as they joined hands. Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to witness the union of two souls who found each other through faith and perseverance. The ceremony passed in a blur for Madeline. She was acutely aware of Reese's hand holding hers, his voice steady as he recited his vows, the weight of the simple gold band he placed on her finger beside her mother's pearl ring. I now pronounce you husband and wife, Reverend Taylor declared. You may kiss your bride. Reese drew her close with his good arm, his kiss tender yet passionate enough to elicit a few chuckles from the congregation. When they parted, Sarah rushed forward, and Reese lifted her with his uninjured arm. We're officially a family now, he told the beaming child. The celebration continued at the town hall, where tables groaned under the weight of food contributed by everyone in Timber Creek. There was dancing despite Reese's injury. He managed a slow waltz with Madeline, careful of his shoulder, then watched proudly as Sheriff Wilson twirled Sarah around the floor, the child standing on his boots. As sunset painted the sky in brilliant oranges and purples, Reese and Madeline slipped away to their cabin, now their home together. Sarah would spend the night with Mrs. Baker, giving the newlyweds privacy. Welcome home, Mrs. Montgomery, Reese said as they reached the porch. Madeline smiled at her new name. It sounds right somehow. Inside, Reese had arranged a surprise. The main room was illuminated with candles, and a bottle of wine waited on the table with 2 glasses. When did you do this? Madeline asked, touched by the gesture. Had some help from Mrs. Baker earlier, he admitted. Wanted our first night to be special. They shared the wine, talking softly about the day, about their future plans. Despite his injury, there was an undeniable tension between them, anticipation of the night ahead. Are you in pain? Madeline asked, noticing him shift uncomfortably. Not from the wound, he replied with a meaningful glance that sent heat rushing to her cheeks. Later, in the privacy of their bedroom, Madeline helped Reese remove his sling and formal clothes, careful of his injuries. Her fingers trembled slightly as she unbuttoned his shirt. We don't have to, he began. I want to, she interrupted softly. I want you, Reese. His good hand came up to cradle her face. I've dreamed of this, of you. Their coming together was gentle, mindful of his healing body, yet passionate, a culmination of months of growing love and restrained desire. Afterward, as they lay entwined, Madeline rested her head on his uninjured shoulder, listening to the steady beat of his heart. "I never thought I'd feel this way again," she confessed. "After Thomas died, I convinced myself that part of life was over." Reese's fingers traced patterns on her bare skin. "Life has a way of surprising us. When I rode into Timber Creek, I was just passing through, looking for the next job, the next town. What made you stay?" "You," he said simply. "The moment I saw you on that porch, something told me I'd found what I'd been searching for without knowing it." Madeline propped herself up to look at him. "Even with all the grief and worry I carried." "Especially then," he replied. "You were fighting to find your child when everyone else had given up. That kind of strength, that kind of love, it's rare, Madeline." "We found her together," she reminded him, "and found each other in the process." Reese smiled, pulling her close again. "The Lord works in mysterious ways." The months that followed brought adjustments as they settled into life as a family. Reese recovered fully from his injuries and resumed his duties as deputy. Madeline returned to teaching when the school term began, with Sarah now among her pupils. Their home expanded. Reese completed the addition he'd started before the wedding and added a proper stable for their horses. He taught Sarah to ride as promised, starting with a gentle pony before graduating her to a small mare. By the following spring, Madeline had news that completed their joy. "A baby," Reese repeated when she told him, his expression transforming from surprise to elation. "We're having a baby," Madeline nodded, laughing as he lifted her and spun her around the kitchen. "Careful, I've been sick every morning this week. How are you feeling? Do you need anything? Should I get the doctor?" The questions tumbled out as he set her down gently. "I'm fine," she assured him. "Dr. Parker confirmed it yesterday. The baby should arrive in late October." Sarah's reaction to the news was equally enthusiastic. At 6, she was old enough to understand and immediately began planning her role as big sister. "I'll teach the baby everything," she declared. "Reading and riding and catching frogs." "Catching frogs might wait a few years," Madeline suggested, amused. As Madeline's pregnancy progressed, Timber Creek continued to grow. The railroad construction brought new businesses and residents, expanding opportunities for everyone. Reese invested in land on the town's outskirts, planning for their future. "We'll need a bigger place eventually," he explained. "Room for the children to run, maybe some cattle, horses." "Children?" Madeline questioned, emphasizing the plural. "Let's get through this one first." Reese smiled, placing his hand on her growing belly. "I want a big family if you're willing. I grew up lonely after my sister was taken." "I don't want that for our children." The tenderness in his voice touched Madeline deeply. "I'd like that too." On a crisp October evening, after 14 hours of labor with Mrs. Baker and Dr. Parker attending, Madeline gave birth to a healthy son. Reese, who had paced anxiously outside until permitted entry, approached the bed with wonder as Madeline held their newborn. "He's perfect," Reese whispered, tears in his eyes as he touched his son's tiny hand. "Strong like his mother." "Robert Thomas Montgomery," Madeline said. They had decided to honor both Reese's father, Robert, and Madeline's first husband. "A fine name," Reese agreed. "Sarah will be thrilled to meet her brother." The following morning, Reese brought Sarah to meet the baby. The girl approached the cradle cautiously, her eyes wide. "He's so small," she whispered. "You were that small once," Madeline told her. "Would you like to hold him?" With Reese's help, Sarah sat in a chair while the baby was placed carefully in her arms. Her initial nervousness gave way to awe as little Robert gripped her finger. "He likes me," she said with delight. "Of course he does," Reese replied. "You're his big sister. You'll always look out for each other." As Madeline watched her family, Sarah holding the baby, Reese's protective presence beside them, she reflected on the journey that had brought them here. From the despair of losing Sarah, believing God had abandoned her, to this moment of complete fulfillment. That night, after Sarah was asleep and the baby fed, Madeline joined Reese on the porch. The autumn air carried the scent of pine from the surrounding forests, and stars blanketed the sky above. "Happy?" Reese asked, his arm around her shoulders. "More than I ever thought possible," Madeline replied honestly. "Sometimes I think about that night you found me on this porch, holding Sarah's doll, believing I'd lost everything. The night I offered to pray with you," Reese remembered. "Yes. When everyone else offered sympathy or platitudes, you offered partnership in faith. You didn't try to fix my pain or dismiss it. You stood with me in it." Reese pulled her closer. "I meant what I said then. Sometimes we need someone to share the burden when it's too heavy to carry alone. You've given me so much more than that," Madeline said softly. A partner, a father for Sarah, another child, a future filled with hope. Inside, the baby began to cry. Reese stood first. "I'll get him. You rest." Madeline watched as he went inside, listening as his deep voice began soothing their son. The crying subsided, replaced by Reese's gentle humming. In that moment, surrounded by the night's peaceful darkness yet filled with light from within, Madeline offered a silent prayer of gratitude. For the man who had found her daughter when all seemed lost, for the love that had restored her faith, for the family they had built together. From the depths of despair, she had found her way to joy. And though life would bring new challenges, it always did she face the future with confidence, knowing they would meet whatever came together, with faith renewed and love as their foundation. In the years that followed, the Montgomery family thrived. Robert was joined by a sister, Rebecca, 2 years later, and eventually by another brother, Richard. Sarah grew into a beautiful young woman who inherited her stepfather's skill with horses and her mother's compassion. Reese eventually became sheriff when Wilson retired, bringing justice and fairness to Timber Creek as the frontier town evolved into a proper city. Madeline continued teaching until founding a proper school with multiple classrooms and teachers, serving as its first headmistress. They never forgot the miracle that had brought them together: a lost child, a broken faith, and a stranger's simple offer. "I'll pray with you tonight." From those words had grown a lifetime of love, proving that even in the darkest moments, hope remained if one had the courage to embrace it.